We have present in the meetings Councillors Anderson, Barker. I'll just check if we have Councillor Brogan in the meeting. We have Councillor Brogan in the meeting. We have present Councillors Brown. We have apologies from Councillor Carmichael. We have present Councillors Conferry, Cowan, Cowie, Devlin, Dewar. We have apologies from Councillor Fagan. We have apologies from Councillor Ferguson Miller, and Councillor Clark will be substituting. We have present Councillor Gowland. I'll just check if Councillor Horn is in the meeting. We don't have Councillor Horn at present. We have present Councillors Johnson Dempsey, Kerr. I'll just check if Councillor Lennon is in the meeting. We don't have Councillor Lennon either, or Councillor Lockhart. We have present Councillors Hugh MacDonald. We have apologies from Councillor McCallan and Councillor McDougall substituting. We have apologies from Councillor McCreary and Councillor Allison is substituting. And we have present Councillors McLaughlin, Nugent, Robb, Toner and Watson. And I'll hand back to the Chair. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Tracy. Item 1, declaration of interest. Any declaration of interests? John Anderson.
Thanks, Chair. I'd like to declare an interest on number 7, item number 7, as I sit in the board, Routes to Work South, and they've been awarded a contract, so I'll declare an interest in that.
Thanks very much, John. No other declarations of interest? Thank you very much. Minutes of the previous meeting, item 2, pages 5 to 16. First of all, is a correct record of the minute. Can I move the minute?
I'll second them.
Any matters arising from the minute? Thank you very much. Can I... Sorry, John Anderson again.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just wondering on agenda item 9 from the last time and agenda item 10, did we manage to fill these 15 posts that's between these two items, number 9 and 10 from the last meeting?
David, sorry. Kevin?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Anderson, for the question. So they're going through the recruitment process at this point in time. So not yet advertised, but just going through the process. We're hoping they'll be online as soon as possible.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. Can I move the minute?
I'll second.
Yes. Minutes agreed. Item 3 is the Revenue Budget Monetary Statement 25-26, pages 17 to 26. Can I invite Louise Harvey to speak to the report?
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. So this is the second report to committee on the 25-26 revenue budget and includes the actuals as at period 5 of our financial year, covering the period 1st of April through to the 8th of August. And we've also got the forecast for the year to the 31st of March 26. The main financial implications of the report are in paragraph 5.1 on page 17, and the resource is projecting a break-even budget position for the financial year 25-26. And it is still a reasonably early forecast, given it's a report at early August this year. In terms of the variance explanations, these are outlined at the bottom of appendices B through to F for each of the main service areas. And in the main, we have underspends in our employee costs, supporting our property costs, covering cleaning and janitorial, costs of depots and rates, underspends in our supplies and services, covering some of our materials, the cost of bins, equipment repairs and IT costs. We've also got transport overspends around vehicle maintenance and hires. Within our admin services and budgets, we've got costs of medicals and general admin costs around printing and stationery, training and subscriptions. And we are projecting an under-recovery in our bereavement income, our school meals income, parking income and income from EV charging. And budget environments are proposed as set out at the bottom of the appendices as well, and these reflect updates to the community and enterprise budget since we last reported on the 16th of May through to the 8th of August, and cover the following main areas: budget realignments to reflect how we deliver our services, transfers to and from our corporate items, covering pay awards, our ENIX funding, waste inflation, utilities movements between leisure around the Community Fight Back Fund and our management fee, and just generally a few transfers between our resources. And we've also got the transfer of temporary budgets to reflect some expenditure commitments from external funding. So if I can refer committee back to paragraph 2, the committee is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the forecast to the 31st of March 26 of a break-even position on the community enterprise revenue budgets as detailed in Appendix A of the report is noted, and that the proposed budget environments are approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I ask one small question on page 19? The private care of garden income, that's been lurking about for a bit, is showing an under income, if you like. Is there any kind of explanation to that?
Yeah, it continues to be the effects of following the pandemic. There was a reduction in the demand for the services, so we have saw it bounce back a little, but not fully to our budgeted level. So it's really changing behaviours, or people, you know, looking at other sources in terms of you know, the grass cutting services within their own homes.
Is it the sort of thing we're interested in doing, any kind of like promotion of the thing or anything like that? Is that helpful to our income to do that? Kevin?
Thanks, Chair. You know, it's something we do, but we do seem to have lost a lot of custom post-COVID. So the private sectors, you know, private providers have stepped in, you know, to that gap. So we're consistently looking at, you know, an under-recovery in our income in that area, but we do whatever we can to promote the service when we are delivering it.
Okay, sorry about that. Any other questions on that one? Can I therefore move the report?
I'll second it.
The report's agreed. Item 4, Capital Budget Monitoring 25-26, pages 27 to 30. Graham Booth to speak to that report. Graham.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. This is our standard capital budget monitoring report, the second for this financial year, and this reflects the budget and spend position to the 8th of August, which is our accounting period 5. It's section 3, giving the background to the report and explaining that the budget reflects the capital programme for the new year as approved at the Executive Committee back in June, and it also includes updates approved by the Executive Committee on the 27th of August and the 24th of September. And at section 5, we're outlining the financial implications. At section 5.1, we're noting the total resource capital programme for the year of £57.467 million. And that includes the budget adjustments, totaling a net increase of £6.673 million, which have been approved by the Executive Committee. The details of these amendments are shown on Appendix A at the bottom of page 29, and they include budget for the EK Town Centre Master Plan in line with the profiling of spend this financial year, the balance of leisure and culture transformation funding required in 25-26, and there are also various external funding awards, including bus infrastructure, road safety improvement and regional congestion reduction measures. As noted in 5.2, in terms of the forecast for this year, we're noting that of £57.419 million, and that's a minor variance in outturn of 48,000, reflecting the most up-to-date profile of spend compared to the budget. And for information, the actual spend incurred to the 8th of August is £6.050 million. I would then refer committee back to the recommendation in section 2 of the report that the community and enterprise resources capital budget of £57.467 million and the forecast expenditure of £57.419 million be noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. Any questions on that report? Can I move the report?
I'll second
The
it.
report's approved. Moving on to item 5, which is the Workforce Monitoring Report, June and July 2025, pages 31 to 38. Can I invite Eileen McPeak to speak to that one, please? Eileen.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. So yes, this is the standard workforce monitoring report for community and enterprise resources covering the period June and July 2025. Section 4 outlines the attendance statistics, and the highlights are that the resource absence figure for July 2025 was 5.5%. It's a decrease compared to the previous month and is 1.2% higher than the council-wide figure. And then comparing to the same period last year, the resource absence figure has increased by 1.1%. All of that translates to the projected annual average for the resource for 25-26 is 6.9%, and that's compared to a council-wide average figure of 6%. Members will be aware that managers are follow the maximising attendance policy and continue to support employees either to remain at work or to support a return to work after an absence. And there's a comprehensive employee supports that are in place that members are well aware of. In terms of occupational health, and the details are in Appendix 2. During the period, there was 192 referrals that were made. For accidents and incidents, there was 28 recorded during the period. For employee relations, in terms of discipline, grievance and dignity at work, there was 11 disciplinary hearings during the period. 1 grievance was raised and there was 2 dignity at work complaints that were raised within the resource. For leavers, the details are in Appendix 2A, and there was a total of 13 leavers during the period, and of them, 3 of them completed exit interviews. And then in Section 5, the details in Appendix 3, there was an increase of 36 employees in terms of the staffing watch return, covering the period the 8th of March to the 14th of June 2025. And I'm referring committee back to Section 2 and ask that the employment information covering June and July 2025 for community and enterprise resources is noted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions? John Anderson.
Chair, this is quite a sort of positive report in a lot of aspects. But page 35, the violent incidents, the physical, it's went up from 2 to 10. That's quite a worrying prospect, that we're having violence within the workforce. I don't know whether it's to our workforce or within the workforce, but I wonder if we could maybe have a wee explanation on that, please.
There were some reporting changes, weren't there? I don't know if that's anything to do with it. Anyway, what's the...
No, there has been an increase in relation to physical violent incidents in terms of how they were recorded. Well, I can't go into the details. It does relate to a service user and a kind of repeated pattern of events rather than one event that affects a lot of people. So there was multiple reports relating to one service user.
Yes, okay. No other questions of that one? Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
That report's approved. Moving on to item 6, which is the Community Enterprise Resources Workforce Plan 2025 to 27, item for decision, pages 39 to 80. Back to Eileen McPaig again. Eileen.
Thank you. Yes, this report provides an update in relation to the Community and Enterprise Resources Workforce Plan 2025 to 2027. So by way of background, in Section 3, the Council Plan life cycle runs from 2022 to 2027, and in line with that timeline, the Council has developed a workforce strategy that makes sure the Council has the people in the right place at the right time and the right roles to enable the delivery of the Council Plan. In terms of the Council's workforce strategy and planning process, the plans, as I say, were aligned to the Council planning timescales and then were presented to the Executive Committee at May 2025. And following on from that, resource workforce plans are then presented to individual resources committees and they've been developed in consultation with HR business managers and resource management teams. The resources undertook a horizon scanning exercise as part of their resource workforce planning process, identifying key areas of focus, and then that, along with workforce data, has been analysed to identify the key actions to deliver the key areas of activity for resources, and this has then been reflected in the workforce plan. A full copy of the workforce plan is attached in Appendix 1 of your report, but in terms of the key challenges and actions that have been identified as part of this process, they're all detailed in Section 4. So Section 4.1.1 goes over recruitment, attraction and retention. So the resources identified challenges in relation to recruitment and retention of professional staff and specialist roles, and also the staff demographic. And then to address this, the resource is looking to continue to use a grow your own approach. This includes succession planning, expansion of graduate recruitment, looking at career pathways and including a relaunch of the apprenticeship programme within roads. In terms of transformation across the resource, you'll be aware there is ongoing financial pressures and a requirement to ensure that we provide employees with training and support on legislative and policy changes within key sector areas such as waste and bereavement, and that along with the support for key transformation projects and programmes such as the Innovation Across Town Centre Regeneration Programme. In terms of skills gaps, the planning process has identified that there are skills gaps across the whole council in relation to digital upskilling and also specialist knowledge as referenced as part of the transformation programme. The council has a learning and development strategy to address this, and this will provide development to support change management and also skills development for IT and digital. In terms of the key activities for the resource, there are challenges in relation to increased service demand and reduced ongoing financial pressures, sustainable service delivery and climate change responsibilities, and the progression of digital innovation and service delivery. And the resource will continue to review staffing arrangements to deliver these key activities and meet service demand pressures. And then finally, in terms of employee wellbeing, there's challenges across all services in terms of absence management, staff resilience and enhanced employee engagement. So within personnel services, we have recruited additional resources to support managers in applying the maximising attendance policy. And in addition to that, the service will continue to review and improve supports that are available to employees alongside engaging with trade unions in line with our partnership working arrangements. In terms of how the plan will be monitored, it will be monitored through the Community and Enterprise Resources Senior Management Team and with annual updates provided to resource committees. Finally, in relation to risk, workforce planning is incorporated into all resource risk registers to acknowledge that having the right workforce with the right skills at the right time is reliant on key workforce actions progressing. And I'm just taking committee back to section 2, and I'm asking that the Community and Enterprise Resources Workforce Plan for 2025 to 2027 is approved. Thank you.
Thanks very much. There's obviously considerable importance on growing our own workforce, as there is in other sections as well. In terms of questions, Andrea Cowan, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thanks very much. Really detailed report, lots of information there, so thanks for that. This is something that I've seen, and I'll be speaking about this tomorrow at Housing because it's a similar trend. And please don't anybody be offended, but we seem to have quite an ageing workforce. I was really surprised to see that 78% of the community enterprise workforce are over 40. I'm not saying that's old. And that we have, numerically, we have 828 employees in this resource, 828 who are over 60 years of age, whereas we only have 15, 16 to 19-year-olds. So there's a huge sort of misbalance there. And I was glad to hear you talking about, succession planning. It's obviously essential that we encourage young people to come to the council. And I just wondered if you could give us a wee bit more information about how you promote that. Do you do that through schools, colleges, that sort of thing? Thank you.
You obviously approach this from a youthful perspective, Andrea, as opposed to my own perspective on this matter.
Well, thank you very much, Robert. I'll take that as it's intended.
Eileen?
Yeah, I suppose just in terms of the age profile, you can see that that's included in the workforce data. And I think the detail that's included in there demonstrates the kind of maturity in terms of our workforce planning process because of the information that is available as part of that. In terms of then how you address the age demographic, it's not unique to community and enterprise resources, but it is about promoting pipelines and routes into the council So there's probably a few things that are ongoing in relation to that, some of which will be reflected in the employability paper that we're about to hear after this. But there is work that's ongoing in schools in terms of promoting things like foundation apprenticeships. We also have a modern apprenticeship programme that I've spoken about as well. There's also some national workforce planning work that's going on about promoting local government as an employer of choice, and that is really about promoting a career pathway through local government, and again being promoted through schools and to young people as well. So there is quite a lot going on in terms of trying to attract workforce into local government and also making sure that they retain and work their way through. And hopefully, as I say, that paints a picture of the succession planning actions that are reflected in the plan. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Obviously, it's a concern if a lot of these people start to retire at the same time. You know, I was just sort of thinking ahead like that. And I'll need to remember to use the word mature. Well done, Eileen. That was a good choice of word. Thanks very much for that.
Oh, well, that's the word of the day, isn't it? Kirsten Robb.
Thank you. Picking up on that a wee bit, it is great to see that further on report on employability, but I did want to ask about the roads apprenticeship scheme. Seems really good, and I was wondering if that's also going to be replicated in grounds or other departments as well to bring in a less mature workforce. And on another wee note as well, just for completeness, on page 77, it talks about awareness on climate change and sustainability, awareness of action to reduce climate impact. Could we add in line with our, there's three different commitments in the Sustainability Action Plan, in the Resource Plan, and in the recent report on the Nature Emergency Motion, we've all committed to increasing biodiversity awareness. So just for completeness, I'd like that to be carried through into the Workforce Plan, to make sure that we're covering that aspect as well. So awareness of action, it's the page 77, second line up from the top, awareness of action required to reduce climate impact and increase biodiversity, would reflect on the commitments we've already made to increase, to do biodiversity training as well as sustainability and climate change training.
Yes, any observation on that? David?
Thanks very much. Thanks so much, Councillor Robb. Yeah, absolutely. We'll have a look at that and sort of tie that back into to that element. Just in terms of, we've got a whole range of different approaches in terms of, as we're looking to bring the workforce, younger workforce in. I'll maybe pass on to Kevin in a wee second in terms of your question about grounds. Well, one of the things I would point out, and this resource does have a mature workforce, but there are a lot of people within that age bracket that are looking for work, and we're providing an opportunity for them to do it. So whilst there are challenges in getting young people into work as well, I do think we offer an opportunity for those people that are a bit more mature to continue to work where they want to. So, but I'll maybe pass on to Kevin. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Councillor Robb. So just your question in relation to apprenticeships. So off the back of this piece of work, that's something that we're starting to look at again. Many years ago, we offered apprenticeships in those service areas, and through the reducing budgets over the years, they've all gone. But it's something we're going to look at again, and maybe make contact with local further education establishments to see what they could offer, and that would be looking across grounds and facilities management as well. So again, folding into the work that we're doing with workforce planning, we'll have a look at that. Big caveat that we don't currently have a budget for it, but we're going to explore it to see how far we can take it. Cheers.
Get something from Douglas in the course of time. Any other questions on that matter? Can I therefore move the report?
I'll second
And
it.
that report's approved. Moving on to item 7. Sorry? Oh yes, David's, that's right. Moving on to item 7, employability performance update, pages 81 to 100. Douglas Hashigan speaking to this report. Douglas.
Thanks very much, Chair. Good afternoon. So this purpose of the report is to provide an update on the performance of the Council's employability service, and also to seek approval to enter into a Tech Hill contract with Routes to Work South for this financial year. So as a bit of background, the employability team's programmes can be split into 3 categories. The first being senior phase work-based learning programmes, Secondly, key worker-based employability support to key priority groups. And thirdly, learning, training, skills development provision delivered to those individuals. So starting off with our senior phase work-based learning programmes, these are the programmes that our service delivers on behalf of schools to young people in S4 to S6. Foundation Apprenticeships, which has just been mentioned, is a national programme funded by Skills Development Scotland, which we deliver in partnership with our college colleagues at South Lanarkshire College and New College Lanarkshire. During 2024-25, so the academic year that finished in June, 174 young people took part in foundation apprenticeships, with 106 completing and 95 achieving the full qualification. For this year, 2025-26, we started 129 young people, which is a kind of mix of 1 year and 2 year starts. As you'll see, there's been a slight dip in terms of the number of starts between 24-25 and 25-26, which we think has been, we promote the service kind of close with schools. I think there's been a bit of a fall because some of the transport provisions changed in terms of funding, so young people having to make a bit more of a longer journey to get to. So we think that's had a bit of an impact on numbers, so we're working with the schools and the colleges to address that. Moving on to Graduate, which is a programme that we've developed specifically for South Lanarkshire, delivered at SCQF level 4 or 5. Young people attend college 1 day a week to take part in one of 12 subject areas, which are set out at table 3 there. In 2024-25, we had 766 places available to young people, which has increased this year to 806. In June, we had a total of 582 young people complete the qualification. Tends to be with the graduate programme. There's a bit of a reduction between the programme starting in August, September and the October break. So next week, when the October break, when the young people return, we'll take a kind of baseline for this year in terms of the young folk that are on the books as it is for this year. So you can see the numbers of graduate. There's always a big demand for graduate at that kind of level. So moving on to section 5, our key worker-based programmes that we deliver are funded by a mix of Scottish Government and UK Government funding, as well as one kind of core resource from the Council. And we plan all that activity in partnership with our local employability partnership and submit that through a plan to Scottish Government, which was approved by this committee earlier in the year. And at table 4, I've set out some of those kind of key priority groups that we work with. So that's young people in the last 6 months of school, and young people aged 16 to 19, adults with barriers to employment, people with long-term health challenges, people with learning disabilities, and targeted parents from the groups that are set out there. And in the table, it just specifies the name of the key work service and the delivery partner, either ourselves or Routes to Work South. The section 6 in table 5 just goes into a bit of detail on some of the provision that we deliver or procure or deliver in partnership through the funding that we have with those participants, so ranging from support and volunteering with FASLAN to some programmes delivered by Routes to Work South and the colleges, as well as some kind of vocationally focused sector-based training that we deliver with local providers in response to the needs of the people on the caseloads. And again, over the page, just a few more of those programmes. So moving on to section 7, across 2024-25, these programmes supported over 2,600 people from the key priority groups identified previously, and that's an increase from the previous year. Through that, 787 people progressed to further education or training, with just under 700 people progressing to employment during that year. We've got also some detail around 2025-26 to date, so up until the end of August. We've had 323 progressing to education or training and 285 moving to employment out of 800 starts. So we're kind of profiled to increase the numbers across the year in comparison to last year. And just table 6 and 7 goes into that in a bit of detail and kind of shows you a breakdown of the different key priority groups. So moving on to section 8, big part of what we do is work closer with schools to make sure that young folk are leaving school and entering into a positive destination. That's reported every year through the School Leaver Destination report through Skills Development Scotland, which currently shows that 96.4% of school leavers, this is young people that left in June in 2024, entered into a positive destination. As you'll see from table 8, that's above the Scottish rate of 95.7, but is a slight dip from the previous year, 0.5 percentage points. And then table 9 just shows a bit of a breakdown of those destinations for South Lanarkshire compared to Scotland across the various categories. And as we've talked about before at this meeting, it's not just about that first transition from school for young people. There's a focus from our team and nationally on the destinations young folk right across the 16 to 19 age range. And STS again produced a report on that, and that shows that 94% of young people within that age range were positively engaged in either education, training or employment during the year. And you'll see that South Lanarkshire has maintained a position above the national rate of 93.3. And we're, I mean, the percentage figure isn't massively high, but I think there's a lot of work that goes into that one. And that's kind of set out at table 11. We, as a team, do a kind of whole programme of tracking and home visits to establish the destinations of young people and make appropriate offers of support in terms of employability. Moving on, as I said earlier on in the report, Routes to Work South, as our arm's length organisation, deliver a range of programmes on our behalf, which are kind of set out before. They do that through an annual contract, a TECAL contract, which we award, and the report seeks permission to enter into a contract for this financial year, and the various programmes and overall budget are set out at table 12. And lastly, I won't go into loads of detail, but at the back of the report, there's a whole range of case studies from participants from the kind of key product groups and from some of our school programmes that members can have a look at their leisure. After that, I can take us back to section 2 and the recommendations that the performance of the employability service is noted and the proposal to enter in a TECAL contract with Routes to Work South is approved. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Douglas. It's a very interesting report with a lot of information. Can I ask a couple of things to kick off with? First of all, on the participation of measures of home visits, the table 11 thing. That I appreciate is the tail end of the group, if you like, if you want to put it that way. But I do note that about half those that you make home visits to, you don't actually get to get a positive response from. Either they're not responding to you or alternatively they're declining support. Has that changed over the years? Is that a growing problem, or are there things we can do about that? Because that's a lot of people kind of lost at the point of the system that you want to have them, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks very much. I mean, it's not changed particularly. I mean, I think data there's a whole range of data that comes into a mechanism called the 16 Plus Participation Portal, and it's information from schools and colleges and DWP. Sometimes that information is wrong, so we will be chapping doors of young people who may not live there anymore, they may have moved, or they might just be out. So I suppose the door knocking that we do is at the end of a process of trying to make contact by phone. So there will be young people that we make a number of attempts to contact and we can't get them. It doesn't show up in statistics, but there will be a certain percentage of those young people who are potentially working in the kind of grey economy, so may not be officially working, but they may not require our support. So I think we just keep on and make sure that the key thing for me is that young people, when they do want support, they know how to get in touch with us. And so by doing the kind of door knocking, leaving leaflets and things, we know that we're here when they choose to make contact.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is a slight dip in people taking up the offers. Does that reflect anything in particular? I mean, you mentioned transport. What was the issue there?
So I think for foundation apprenticeships, when they were launched maybe 8 or 9 years ago, there was a big focus from schools in terms of referring young people. I think maybe naturally that focus has kind of dropped slightly as schools have started to provide more vocational based options within their own school curriculum rather than kind of sending young folk to ourselves. The transport issue has been a challenge. In the early years of the programme, there was much more funding available for us to kind of provide buses and taxis for young people, and that funding is reduced, not from ourselves but from Skills Development Scotland. So for some young people it just will be the natural choice between thinking, do I go to school that's easy, or do I get 2 buses that might take me an hour? So we've got a kind of cut-off point where we do provide transport, but there's not a lot of flexibility beyond that. So I think because of that, those numbers have kind of have dropped and almost kind of found their kind of level within the system. We certainly attend all the school careers fairs and option choice even, so we make sure that information's out there for young people.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. In terms of questions, Ross Clark.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for that report. It's certainly detailed, and there's a lot of good stuff in it, and a lot of work that's going on, certainly to welcome and supporting people into employment. I'm looking at things such as the key priority groups, and obviously there's lots of focus on working with young people and adults with barriers to employment, as it says there. I know there's a lot of crossover with this and the Education Committee, for example, when you're talking about in that resource, when you're talking about supporting young people into employment, especially directly from education. But I don't really see a specific mention in the paper on care experience young people. I know that work does go on, so I'm not saying that it doesn't, and know through education and elsewhere in the council that the council and organisations such as Roots to Work South is supporting care experience young people and adults, but just looking for reassurance that is still something we are focused on and still a group we're looking to support.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. That is remains a big focus for our service. It's maybe just hasn't come across in the paper. So within our Aspire and Aspire Work Services, we've got a large number of young folk that are kind of care experienced, and we take on a responsibility with colleagues in social work and SDS to do some intensive tracking of those young people's destinations. And there was a particular focus on care experienced young people through the employability promise, which was approved by Exec Committee earlier in the year. So I can give a wee update on that. So that's about efforts to try and move care experienced young people into employment with the council. So we're currently actively working with a group of 25 care experienced young people who have been supported by key workers on our team, 2 of whom have moved into employment just over the past 6 weeks with the council, and we're in the process of arranging work placements for 6 or 7 of those young people, with the remainder on a kind of plan with work placements coming down the road. So absolutely that remains a kind of big priority for us.
Okay, Councillor Alec Allison. Alec.
Thanks, Chair. Table 6, number of registrations at just over 2,600, but only half the people who registered have actually progressed training, education or work. Am I missing something in these figures? Is that the usual fall off? And if it is, what are we attempting to do to try and improve that?
Yeah, thanks very much. So I suppose what you've got is the registrations during that calendar year at Table 6, and then the progressions to training, education or employment. It's not necessarily the same cohort. So some of the people who progress to training or education or employment will be people who started the programme in the previous year. So we kind of, we're always looking to improve. We're always looking to make sure that we're giving the kind of correct one-to-one support to all the people. So as people with barriers to employment, you wouldn't expect certainly folk with barriers to employment to have a 90%, 100% job outcome rate, because they wouldn't need our support if that was the case. So we're kind of comfortable with that level of progressions. It's kind of what you would broadly expect to see within an employability programme.
Supplemented. So what fall off would we expect if that's progression over from a number of years starts? Of that 2,600, how many would we expect to complete the programme, if you like, successfully?
So apologies. We would probably be looking for a positive outcome rate of between 60 and 70% across a calendar year. So what I could do, because these figures relate to starts from previous years and leavers from that year, I could go back and get a bit more detail on a kind of average, not an average, but a percentage within the year, if that'd be useful.
Okay. Thank you very much. No further questions. That one. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. That report's approved. Item 8, Business Gateway. Oh, John, to get John back in, yes. Thank you. Item 8, Business Gateway Lanarkshire 24-25 Performance Report, pages 101 to 112. Ian Ross, I think, is speaking to this report.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Afternoon, everybody. The purpose of this report is to provide an overview of the activities and performance achieved during the first year of the in-house delivery model of Business Gateway Lanarkshire service. Excuse me. Section 3 of the report gives a background to the Business Gateway service, which is a nationally branded service with a national base hosted by COSLA. Within Lanarkshire, the service is delivered jointly by ourselves and colleagues in North Lanarkshire, and at Section 3.2 and Section 3.3 it gives a little overview of what the core service objectives are and some of the themes underpinning those aspects. Members will hopefully remember that the service was previously provided by an external provider, but it was brought in-house into North Lanarkshire from the 1st of March 2024. And although the service is hosted by North Lanarkshire, there are quarterly steering group meetings which representatives from Enterprise and Sustainable Development attend, working closely with colleagues in North Lanarkshire. Coinciding with the move to in-house delivery model, the National Business Gateway Group brought in a new service specification which took effect from June 2024, and the combination of these two aspects mean that particularly quarter one of 24-25 delivery was quite disrupted for colleagues in the Business Gateway service, and you'll see that through some of the figures as the report goes on. The national objectives are set out in that service specification, but there are also local priorities and objectives, and those are listed but not exclusive in section 3.8. I should say that this is a report it mirrors a report that went to North Lanarkshire Council Committee last month. And a lot of the statistics and data in the report are understandably provided by colleagues within the Business Gateway service as their regular updates to ourselves and North Lanarkshire as that management team. Section 4 of the report looks at the overall performance of the service, starting off with the ways in which inquiries come through into the Business Gateway service, and once they arrive, they are categorised into two principal categories: business startups and existing businesses. So, section 4.2 touches on the different categories within the business startup. So, essentially, there are businesses that are really at zero and need to be taken all the way through the process, but there are also what's termed Pre-Start Plus, which are businesses who are highly engaged, have the potential to create employment and potentially to take on commercial premises and be registered with that within a year of those engagements. Looking at some of the figures at 4.23, as I say, the first quarters are in all these tables are quite low compared to the remaining part of the year, and there have been a number of the targets not met within that first year, which is not unexpected. And section 4.2 just gives a bit of 4.24 gives a bit of an overview as to some of the challenges that were faced by the service in terms of the transfer of staff, getting systems up and running, and a number of challenges across the economy. 4.2.5 touches on some of the survival rates around new start businesses, and 28% sounds as if it's a very low conversion rate, but it's a figure that has been broadly consistent for many years, not just within Lanarkshire but across Scotland and indeed beyond. Survival rates of new businesses can be very challenging to keep going. Section 426 touches on the New Start Plus, excuse me, and again there were ambitious increases in targets moving into 24-25. Some of those challenges set out in 424 mean that they haven't quite been met, but there has still been a considerable increase in the engagement with those businesses. 427 touches on some of the areas where Business Gateway are looking to improve that performance across these areas. There's been a very candid and honest discussion around all the management meetings as to where improvement can be made. And as I say, within each of these sections, they've been very candid around where they see the opportunities for that improvement. So moving into section 4.3, that touches on the existing businesses, and again, at 4.3.1 categorised into those three main categories. Again, moving through into the tables, it gives an overview of the engagement with businesses within each of those sections. And again, at the risk of labouring the point, the Q1 figures are particularly low, but you'll see that they grow and are more sustained as we move through the financial year. Again, sorry, moving into section 435, that touches on the areas of improvement for existing businesses and the way in which the service will improve that engagement or enhance that engagement moving into the current financial year. And 436 gives a nice example of where the support of Business Gateway has been very successful in allowing an East Kilbride-based business to secure a major contract with NHS Scotland. The performance of Business Gateway is monitored externally, and the section 4.4 touches on how that quality assurance process is put in place and delivered. And again, at 4.4.3, it gives an overview of the feedback. Again, these are an anonymous feedback through one of these online SurveyMonkey type portals, but it allows us to see collectively that the performance of the Business Gateway is strong and the satisfaction levels are high. That said, they're by no way complacent, and they're continuing to try to improve moving forward. 4.5 touches on the way in which those services are delivered through a series of workshops and events. And again, as you move through section 4.5, you'll see there are the range of activities, the number of these activities carried out, the breadth of locations, both across Lanarkshire as a whole, but across South Lanarkshire as well. And at 4.5.4, we touch on the 4.5.5, the boot camps which have been run. These have proven to be particularly successful, and other Business Gateway services across the country are looking at replicating that because of the success and the traction that's been delivered. Section 4.6 touches on the community engagement. So again, how the service gets into and across a range of locations and organisations within across the Community Planning Partnership and beyond. One of the ones that's been particularly pleasing for South Lanarkshire has been the Shark Reef programme delivered with schools and colleges. And we're into the second year of that, and hoping that continues to be a great success. 4.7 touched on the overall marketing programme, so that's jointly done through the national group and local groups, and you'll see running through section 4.7, that's a very extensive PR programme. You'll hopefully pick up the odd radio advert or billboards or even TV adverts that they just keep that awareness of Business Gateway moving forward. So looking forward to 25-26, again, section 5.1 notes that there have been a number of challenges moving into the new delivery model, and the need to help improve that, but also picking up on opportunities as well, such as town centres, through the work that the other parts of our team are doing in town centre regeneration, and that's mirrored in North Lanarkshire. Another key opportunity is liaising with other colleagues across the council. A huge number of colleagues engage with businesses on a daily basis, and just having that wider awareness that a reference to Business Gateway at the appropriate point is something that will help drive footfall through Business Gateway and improve the engagement with the service. So section 5.3 touches on the proposed revised targets. So previous targets, when it was an external provider, there was a bit of a danger that, particularly latterly in the year, the engagement with business was all targeted around meeting targets, as opposed to ensuring that the best engagement with the services with the users were being provided. So what we've done, working closely with both Business Gateway and colleagues in North, is have a review of the overall targets, still keeping ambitious and challenging targets for the service, but recognising that there are the important thing is to support business, not just to tick a box about the number of businesses that have been spoken to. So the revised proposals within the table at section 5.3, we feel reflects that. There are a reduction in a couple of areas, such as new starts supported, but there are increases in other areas, such as business base. And as I say, that just reflects the way in which the engagement with businesses has happened over the course of the last year. Section 5.4 just touches on some of the challenges around the kind of wider economy. There has been a bit of a tale-off nationally around people starting new businesses, a slight reluctance given the economic climate around interest rates, utility costs, the national kind of economy. Just there's been a little bit hesitancy, and because the employment market is relatively strong for a lot of that kind of demographic, they have in some cases chosen to stay in what they see as perhaps more secure employment rather than moving into self-employment at this time. But again, that's an area that the Business Gateway keep under review and will monitor moving forward. The only other section I draw your attention to is section 9, and the fact that the Business Gateway programme will support and tie in with the aims and ambitions of the Marmot Place programme moving forward. And with that, I would just take members back to section 2 of the report and ask that the performance of the Business Gateway Lanarkshire service for the year 24-25 be noted, and that the revised targets set out in the report for 25-26 be approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. Ian, on questions, John Anderson.
Thanks, Chair. Particularly on the second last point there that Ian raised about people being reluctant to set up a new business. How much of that is down to Labour's employment national insurance contribution rise? Because you read all over the papers, yeah, you can throw your hands up, Maureen, but you read all over the papers that there's no restricted to South Lanarkshire, but right across the UK, people are not starting up businesses. Businesses are not employing people. In fact, businesses are making people redundant because of this, and it's a worrying trend. But the other thing here, the performance statistics throughout this report look as if North Lanarkshire is doing a lot better than South Lanarkshire. And even on page 107, the service criteria with the users of this service, North Lanarkshire people or businesses seem much happier with everything that's done it. Beneficial to business, likelihood to recommend, likelihood to keep using, satisfaction with staff. Is there a two-tier thing going on here? that North Lanarkshire is getting a better deal than South Lanarkshire? Thanks.
I don't. Hold on, just a second. Just a second, through the chair. I was going to say I don't think it's appropriate for the officials to answer your first question. It's a matter of political debate, which I know we can spend a lot of time on. On the second question on the North Lanarkshire, South Lanarkshire thing, do you want to say anything about that, Ian?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, you're right, Councillor Anderson. There are some of the stats through this that show a difference between North and South, or the figures suggest a difference. I suppose that there are a number of aspects around that. One is the business base between North and South are quite different. Secondly, the programmes that are in place between North and South vary. There are greater focus around the Hive programme in North, for example, which is a business incubator service specifically for women moving into the business. They have put in a programme around the BAME business community, but we are those coming on, so we have now got engagement with the BAME business community. There is funding that they have secured external to the council, which will allow them to bring that programme forward. And I say that engagement more widely across council services to help drive that traffic to Business Gateway will be important. But fundamentally, the point you've raised is something that we mention at all the management meetings. We are equal partners in this service, and we expect and want an equal hand. And there's no argument with that. Colleagues in North are absolutely behind that and fully recognise that this has to be an equal partnership. But there is, it's a demand-driven service. So in other words, we are very much reliant on the businesses taking up the offer to engage with the service. Yes, there's an opportunity to market, to hold events, to go out and try and engage with businesses, but ultimately the businesses need to be engaging with the Business Gateway service.
Okay, Alec Allison.
Thanks, Chair. Ian, you indicated that the recommended revised targets being reduced were to, can I say, prevent a tick box exercise in being able to achieve targets. What are you going to do to ensure that these new targets aren't simply just addressed by ticking a box and they're actually going to be a meaningful input?
Thank you. Again, I think that's a key point and a key reason that the service was brought in-house. So the external provider, part of their payment was linked to the successful achievement of these targets. The targets are necessary, the targets are important, and we need to make sure that the Business Gateway service are delivering on those. But the fact that they are now in-house with North Lanarkshire means that opportunity to look at the quality of service delivery can be as equally important as the numbers-driven part of it. So I think it goes back to that management structure, the fact that they are within North Lanarkshire, the fact that we can sit with them and monitor through the year. And as I say, it's not solely down to this, but that loss of activity through that transition through the first quarter of 24-25 is a significant proportion of where those figures fell short. And as I say, these figures are, they've been amended to reflect what we've all been able to learn over 24-25, and expect that to be able to be taken forward into the coming year.
I think it's
so.
Yes.
Will future reports give us an indication as to the success of these interactions, if you like?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is the format of reporting that we get quarterly from Business Gateway, so we can monitor that through the year, highlight any areas where there may be concerns, put in measures to affect that. But yes, fundamentally, when we come back to members each year, there will be that context around the reporting.
I think this comes back to us quarterly, doesn't it? We see this report reasonably frequently. Is it quarterly? We get it quarterly? No? No. How often? Sorry.
It is an annual report, but
Right.
going forward, we could bring it to committee on a 6-monthly basis, and
Yes.
that would give you a bit of traction and a bit of visibility of how things were doing.
I think that might be useful to see that, because I clearly want to see the figures as the kind of monitoring exercise, don't we, as far as that's concerned. It's fair to say that although we've brought it in-house, that's actually moved at one stage nearer, because it was always a North and South Lanarkshire joint endeavour, even when it was outsourced. Jerry Convery.
Yeah, you've just answered my question. That's why we brought it back in, to make it work better for both councils.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. No further questions. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thanks very much. That report's approved. Moving on to item 9, Community Benefit Funds, Renewable Energy Fund, grant applications, pages 113 to 118. Alison Brown.
Thank you. This is a regular report to committee, which this month seeks approval for just 2 grant applications from the Renewable Energy Fund. The first is for Hope Hub Skio, a project that serves the Blackwood and Kirkmuir Hill communities. The grant application is for the installation of solar panels and batteries to reduce energy costs for the building and cut carbon emissions. A grant of just over £58,000 is proposed against a project value of just over £97,000. The second application is from Whiston Lodge, who are seeking a grant of £150,000 towards a project value of £190,000. This will support the ongoing operation of the Outdoor Education Centre, which supports vulnerable children and young people. The project will also include a feasibility study to identify additional income streams and a marketing strategy for the lodge going forward. The funding will keep the lodge operational until May 2026. Therefore, returning to the recommendations, committee is asked to approve the grant awards of £58,651 to Hope Hub Skio and £150,000 to Whiston Lodge.
Thanks very much. I maybe observe in passing, I had a visit to Whiston Lodge a while back. I was quite impressed with the setup there. And as it happened, I heard a report of one of my school councils about their visit, if you like, to Whiston Lodge as well. So clearly it's an important function, and I think it's one we want to keep going. But there is a sustainability issue which this is trying to address, isn't there? Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. That report's approved. Item 10, Châtellerault and Calder Glen Country Park Master Plans and associated Phase 1 projects, pages 119 to 148. And Alison Brown again. Alison.
Thank you. This paper provides an update on the work undertaken to develop master plans for both Châtellerault and Calder Glen Country Parks and seeks approval on the strategic approach for development and investment over the next 10 years. The background to the project, including the procurement of the team, is set out in section 3. It also highlights the strategic documents which have been prepared to support the master plans. A series of consultation and stakeholder engagement sessions were carried out in August and September last year and also August and September this year, including a consultation website, posters and a survey with over 1,000 responses received from members of the public and community groups. Consultation has also been taken with South Lanarkshire Leisure and Culture, Historic Environment Scotland, park users and sports clubs. The investment proposals for each park are set out in section 5 with executive summaries of the master plans included in your appendices. In the case of Châtellerault, there are a number of opportunities, including enhancing the visitor experience with a new exhibition and conference facility, together with enhancing the play offer and improving the events infrastructure. In the case of Calder Glen, likewise, there's a range of opportunities, including to create a new gateway centre and transform the buildings at the historic courtyard. The delivery of these investment proposals is dependent on the availability of funding. These master plans include the outline business cases which will support future external funding bids. In relation to Phase 1 project, The Council's approved budget for 25-26 included the allocation of £1.350 million, which included the development of a bike pump track at Calder Glen and the reinstatement of the White Bridge at Chatelherault. Further details of these projects are set out in section 6. In terms of the financial implications, I would reiterate that these strategic master plans will set the vision for investment for external funding bids and for the Council over time. Without this strategic approach, funding bids are less likely to be successful. This is the same approach that we've adopted for the Town Centre master plans, which we've been successful in attracting funding to date. Whilst consultation has taken place, it is anticipated that these conversations with stakeholders and the wider communities even will continue as projects are brought forward, including the establishment of stakeholder groups. It's also proposed that the plans are presented to area committees in the coming weeks. Taking you back to the recommendation, committee is asked to note the series of investment proposals for each park, approve the strategic approach for development and investment in each park over the 10-year period, and note the progress of the Phase 1 projects. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alison. A number of questions on this, starting with David Watson.
Thanks, Chair. Glad to see investment in the parks, but quite frankly, I'm not sure what to make of this report. Albeit funding for the consultants was from an external source. I think if you spoke, and I can only speak about Calder Glen here and not Chatelherault, MD and East Kilbride, they could probably come up with similar areas of highlighted for spend, etc. And that has been the case for a good number of years. I'd have thought we would have had a detailed presentation in what's been proposed here, because we're getting asked to basically accept what's in front of us, and it's a bit of a fait accompli, and albeit there's summaries at the back of the report of what's been proposed, but personally I'd have liked to have seen further discussion, particularly with elected members and with the public. I think it's treating the area committees, both Hamilton and East Kilbride, with disrespect, that having a presentation on this after this committee's actually approved it. And I know as well we're going to continue running with the consultants. How much is that costing? And these issues have been identified that we want to spend on. Why can it not be carried out in-house with our own staff and our own expertise that we have here?
Sorry, do you mean the consultancy thing as opposed to the projects?
We're going to continue with the same consultants that have conducted the original master plan that's in front of us. And I'm a bit of a loss to see how our own staff can't maybe run with some of this, and that we're spending money on consultants as well. Sorry that's a bit negative on what should be a good news story, but I think we're handling it wrong, and there should be more discussion on it. Thanks, Chair.
I think there's a capacity issue within the department, which no doubt Alison will say something about as well.
Thank you, and thanks for your points. I mean, in relation to consultation, this is a long-term strategy, so these conversations can continue over the course of the master plan period. This is setting the vision, this is setting the objectives, which have been strongly encouraged to prepare master plans, both for town centres and for country parks, by Scottish Government, to set that building blocks for future funding bids. So without this strategic intent, we are less likely to be successful in securing external funding. So that was the premise for this. Absolutely, the conversations with communities and groups and sports clubs and haven't stopped, and websites will continue to be live. And as projects are hopefully taken forward, as funding is identified, then stakeholder groups can be established to shape and develop these. So these are these are projects at an inception stage that will twist and turn over the course of, you know, a 10-year period. But this is fundamentally putting building blocks to secure external funding. In terms of the consultancy aspect, you're absolutely right. This is funded externally, but that funding stream is coming to an end. So the consultancy piece will also be ending, and as and when individual projects are taken forward, the council will consider the appropriate procurement route. That might be in-house if we've got capacity. It might be through an external procurement, again, not necessarily with the same team, but we will take each project at the appropriate time in terms of how best we resource that.
Okay, Colin Dewar. Sorry, David.
Maybe I misread somewhere, but I'm sure I read in this, I'm trying to find it now, that we're going to continue with the consultants, and it wasn't going to be on an ad hoc basis, that they would be taking forward what's basically in the paper. But I'll be corrected on that. But I think as well, there's quite specific proposals in the appendix, and to then say, but we're still going to talk to people, but we've got these specific proposals, I'm not quite sure where that sits, in all honesty, but I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Okay. Sorry, David.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Councillor, I just wanted to come in on the use of consultants. Our preference is always to use in-house resources where we can do so. It is just worth bearing in mind in terms of the resource, the amount of kind of work we're covering in this area. When we think of the master planning exercises that are going on for East Kilbride and for Hamilton, as well as this work here, as well as the work we're doing on the Council's Transformation Fund as well, and the estate strategy. So there are limitations in terms of the availability of in-house resources that we've got in order to take this type of work on. And that's why what we are doing is, and on a strategic basis and with a lot of thought put into it, we're utilising consultants, but only where we believe it's required to do so. So I just wanted to make that clear, just in terms of the capacity to carry this kind of work forward.
I don't know if is there a demand for an awareness session or anything of that sort? Is that relevant to what we might be able to do? Yeah. I don't know if other people wanted such a thing, or just David, maybe we'll come to that at the end of the meeting if there's still a demand for that. Colin Dewar.
Thanks, Chair. I think this is a positive report in terms of the wider proposals, but particularly for Charlotte Road Country Park. The investment proposals that identified for Charlotte Road make a lot of sense and show a welcome long-term commitment to enhance the facilities of the park and encourage increased use by residents locally and from elsewhere more widely, beyond the 800,000 annual visitors currently. Specifically on the Phase 1 project to reinstate the White Bridge, this is a long time coming. I'm very pleased that this is a priority item, as it will reopen the paths and trails through the park in full. The question is on this is, should costs be ascertained and work start in spring 2026? Is there an estimated timescale for completion of this?
Okay. Alison.
Yeah, we are currently working through some technical challenges with that project. As you'll be well aware of the geography of it. So the actual abutments of the original bridge are in a worse condition than we had anticipated. So the team are working through some of the engineering solutions, some of the logistical solutions around actually getting equipment to that location, and we're speaking with some landowners, trying to secure some access across some adjacent fields. So there's some definitely technical challenges with this project, and it's likely that we'll come back to committee with a much more detailed report on that one in due course. We've been working with Kevin's teams as well, looking at the footpath routes down to the White Bridge, and say we'll come back in some further details around that, and also what that proposal looks like as well. So
I've also got another point. There's a mention of a future science strategy at 5.5 on page 121. As there's many access points into Shatler Country Park, in addition to the main entrance at Fernegear, there's access points from Barncleuth Road and Old Avon Bridge in Hamilton, and from Barncleuth and Meriton at Larkhill, and also from Sunnyside Road and Quarter. Is there any intention to encourage active travel via walking and cycling by enhancing signage or through promotion online, be that via QR code or by social media of the council's channels? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Councillor Chair, I think that's a very valid question for both country parks. It's relevant to both, that we need to be encouraging pedestrian access, active travel. I think signage for both country parks could be an early win as well. And it's something that as a team, I think we're quite keen to sort of get involved in, again with Kevin's team. So it's not just looking at the main car routes and vehicular routes, but it's also those footpath connections into the surrounding areas and bus routes as well.
I think in Shatler Road, there's also the question of finding your way into it if you have a meeting that you go in at the back and so forth. So there's a number of issues on that one. Kirsten Robb.
Thank you. Yep. First of all, a transparency statement. I volunteer with a couple of groups helping to keep Calder Glen Park litter-free, clear fallen trees and deliver conservation tasks. However, as my comments today are of a strategic nature, I don't feel it's a conflict of interest. With my work experience in funding communities and landscapes, and as a local councillor, I asked for a master plan for Calder Glen and was pleased to see it kick off. The vision of the master plan to maintain and enhance the park are good, and some of the projects are good too, but I won't sign up to it today because I share the same concerns as David, and I'll go into the reasons for that, and I've got a proposal to rectify it, which I hope can gather some support. First of all, the scope is too narrow. It's capital only and focused on the honeypot bits of the parks with no mention of the wider parks. This has led to missed opportunities for community wealth building and concerns for current staff capacity and lack of revenue funding to maintain it as it is, never mind improve it into the future. There's been some serious issues around engagement and consultation, so I don't think it's right for councillors to sign off any plans with nobody ever seeing any consultation results either this year or last year. Thirdly, there's been a lack of scrutiny and proper decision-making. Decisions were made about Phase 1 projects with no scrutiny, no provision of consultation results, no business cases, no value for money assessments. For example, the pump track is not infrastructure first, in line with local plan principles. The process doesn't comply with right first-time guidance to ensure councillors get the information they need to make good decisions. And with the external funding available for pump tracks, it isn't value for money. Maintenance needs core council money, and that should be used. You can get money for capital projects from elsewhere. Finally, number 4, the projects are incomplete to deliver the vision. Remember the vision to maintain and enhance. On word 2, there's no projects identified to deliver that maintain vision. And the phasing of projects is not right. The statutory purpose of country parks is to provide, which is in our local plan, is to provide recreational access to countryside close to centres of population. Local user groups and community councils have asked me to stand up for recreation and access, for paths to be maintained and landslips which have cut the park in half for the last 5 years to be repaired too. Whilst the master plan talks about maintenance, there are no projects to deliver in this, and it isn't acceptable to suggest that at some point in the future, undefined, when the master plan projects start to generate more income, that this repair work might be done. So my proposal is to postpone the master plans, at least for Calder Glen. I do agree with Colin, the White Bridge is actually something I worked on about 10 years ago, and it had challenges then, so I think maybe that's one to move forward, but at least for Calder Glen, I would like to see a delay until the next committee to 1, give time to analyse the most recent consultation results and business cases, and give these to elected members to help us make more fully informed decisions. 2, take an infrastructure first approach and prioritise access and repairs first with core council funding, particularly as these are hard to fund externally. And 3, ensure the master plan documents cover the whole park and deliver on community wealth building, not just the Honeypot end and capital works. So I'd like to move that proposal forward for all the reasons that I've suggested. I have been looking at this issue for at least 2 years and have done my research. Thank you.
To make some comments on that. I'll leave the motion till later on when we finish the discussion, but perhaps Alison can come back on some of those points.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Rob. There's a lot of points in there. Some of what you mentioned is principally around revenue funding and the day-to-day operation of the park. And the master plan is about future investment in the park for external funding bids. And external funders are unlikely to fund work that we as a council should be doing at our own hand. So that work is important and does feature in the master plans. But where we're trying to attract external funding is for projects that they will fund. It's very unlikely that they will fund what is day-to-day maintenance and operational activities. The Phase 1 projects were approved as part of the Council's budget setting and were part of that sort of political discussion and debate. And I think, you know, officers provided a range of projects, and there was a decision taken as part of that political debate at that time, and we have been tasked with taking those projects forward. The list of projects in the master plans aren't phased or prioritised in any way, because we need to see where the external funding opportunities come and adapt those to potentially new funding opportunities. So in terms of infrastructure first, you know, in principle, I absolutely agree with that. I think, you know, for Calder Glen, one of the key projects is the access arrangements into Calder Glen, potentially the Colonsay Field, the parking, etc. We know the pinch points around the travel patterns and access into Calder Glen. So, say that the projects identified aren't necessarily prioritised in any way. We need to just position ourselves so that we've projects shovel ready that are able to take advantage of any funding opportunities that come forward.
Thank you very much. Can I move on to Elaine McDougall? Sorry, you're going to come in on that one, David. Sorry. Give us a second, Elaine. David?
So thank you very much, and thank you for your comments as well, Councillor. It's just that point that Alison touched on there around about documents like this. And this is a tactic we've taken very successfully in terms of the work that's been done around about our town centres. In the absence of a strategic vision document like this, when the opportunities do come up for external funding, if these don't exist, it's very, very difficult to get access to that funding. When these do exist in the form, even in this sort of form here, what it does is it gives us an opportunity to engage with and coalesce around about external funding, and we've used that very successfully, I think, in terms of where we're going in Hamilton and East Kilbride. And the intention would be with these documents is that's a purpose which is around about trying to attract that external funding. So I think that these succeed on that basis. I just wanted to make that point really clear.
Okay, thanks, David. Elaine, can you press your button again, please? Thank you. Elaine McDougall.
I accidentally unpressed it earlier as well, so apologies for that.
No problem.
I wanted to broadly welcome the strategic vision for the parks. I appreciate it will be a long-term project, and there'll be future consultations, and we're not signing off something set in stone. I'm hearing what Kirsten is saying, and I think she's got some valid points, and David as well, about, you know, maybe some more awareness sessions could be held, but I certainly wouldn't want to delay this proposed plan today. And I think there's lots of good stuff in there and potential for funding when it comes up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't have anyone else on the screen. I wonder if I can suggest two things, if I may. One relates to the awareness session thing that was talked about before. I do think there might be some value in that. The second, it's really, if I'm understanding Kirsten's concerns correctly, they mostly do relate, I think Alison said, to maintenance and revenue sorts of issues, which are not really what this is particularly about, but they are valid nevertheless. And I just wonder if there's kind of scope for, I don't know, further paper or some way of tackling that particular aspect so the committee can have, if you like, some consideration to that kind of thing. Is that a valid suggestion at all? Anything can we do in that direction of travel? David?
Yeah, so I think if the committee would wish us to bring forward another paper which talks about the condition of the parks and the general maintenance and the development and identification of need, then I think we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, David Watson.
Just, I think Kirsten made some valid points, and so Alison retort valid points as well, and I fully accept that. But I go back to the way this has been presented, and that's why I'm going to second the proposal brought forward there, because it's not putting this in the bin, it's leaving it open for further discussion and debate without us adopting this, because if we just adopt this today, that's it. I think lessons need to be learned about how this has been presented to us as councillors, because it'll happen again, no doubt, if it's not challenged. And I say, to me, this is a fait accompli, and it shouldn't have been. There should have been more community discussion, and there should have been more discussion with elected representatives. So, on that basis, I'll be seconding the motion.
Right, well, I'm going to move the report. I'm going to do it on the basis of there being provision for an awareness session where some of these issues can be taken forward, and the further report that we referred to earlier on. Now, I do think that actually ought to deal with the issues and give us a format for taking this one forward. I don't think we should be holding up the report. It does seem to me it's something that's, has been said, it's not the end result of the thing, it's a sort of starting block type proposal here, and I don't think it stops any of the things that Kirsten and others have talked about in terms of further discussion about the way forward. But we do want to see action on, I mean, we have provided some degree of funding, obviously, towards the master plans for these parks in the budget, and we want to see that money developed and spent usefully in supporting the things we've got. I don't want to go around too much. Kirsten, have you any new points to make on this?
Yeah, just following up the consultation and so on. I'm just wondering why we would sign off something where we don't know what the public think. I appreciate the various answers and ability to come back on different things, and the report promised on revenue and maintenance and so on. Just the fact that the vision is to maintain and enhance, but there are no projects or a vague promise in future that they might be maintained. So I would like that report to come forward, but I'm really concerned that a stakeholder group wasn't set up at the start. We're making decisions without knowing not having any consultation reports. So yeah, thank you to David. I would like these views to be considered moving forward, and to make sure that these voices are heard, that people want the parks maintained.
I don't think there's any question of voices not being heard. I don't accept on behalf of the
We
committee
don't know.
that that's
We
the
don't know.
ball game we're talking about here. We're talking about an ongoing process, a transparent process, which will in fact involve ongoing consultations of various kinds. I've tried to deal with the issues that have been raised in terms of the format by the awareness session and the further report. And I think with that, can we perhaps move to the vote on it? So there's a motion by myself, seconded, I think, by Deputy Chair, to approve the report in terms of the recommendation here. There's an amendment by Kirsten Robb. Do you want to summarise that?
The vote will be coming up shortly. So the motion is proposed by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Devlin, to approve the recommendations in the report. And the amendment proposed by Councillor Robb, seconded by Councillor Watson, is to postpone approval of the report for the reasons set out by Councillor Robb. I'll start the vote, and if you could just select your preferred option.
So minutes may have to.
Just waiting on a few members still to vote, just to check if the members in the room, to ensure that you've entered the meeting so that your vote preferences show up. Still waiting on 3 members. Two now. If any remote members are having difficulties, can you let me know?
Two members still do we know who they are?
Yeah, it flashes up, so I'm just going to try and check. Councillor Gowland, it doesn't look like you've voted yet. And now we're just making one more person to vote. Yes, I'm just waiting one.
Who's missing now?
Yeah, I'm just waiting on one member.
Who said that electronic voting was quicker?
Councillor Johnson Dempsey, I think it's you still to vote. Councillor Johnson Dempsey, can you request to speak and just confirm that you've voted?
Yes, still on. Like, he's showing that he's there.
I think we should bring that to an end, shouldn't
we? Yeah, on the basis that Councillor Johnson Dempsey's not responded, I'll just close the vote. We have 17 votes for the motion and 3 votes for the amendment with no abstentions, so the motion is declared carried.
Thank you very much. Move on to item 11, which is the new Lanark World Heritage Site Management Plan 25 to 30, pages 149 to 184. And in this instance, Fraser Cullen to speak to the report. Fraser.
Okay. Yep, thanks, Chair. I think I'm in now. Yeah, so this paper seeks to inform the committee on the management plan for New Lanark World Heritage Site, and it's a management plan that will last for the period 2025 to 2030. New Lanark is obviously one of South Lanarkshire's most important heritage, cultural and environmental assets that we have. And the plan set out in the appendix to this report sets out the activities, operations and the activities which will maintain the World Heritage status site for New Lanark. Paragraph 3.3 sets out how the Council engages in New Lanark, and in Section 4 the strategic objectives of the New Lanark Trust are summarised, and within these are the activities that are then delivered by the staff and the management team at New Lanark. If accepted today, the Council will become a co-signatory to this plan, and it will be submitted to Historic Environment Scotland as well as UNESCO. So in this context, members are asked to approve the recommendation that's set out in Section 2 of the report. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Fraser. Any questions on that one? This is more the New Lanark's one than ours, I think, isn't it, in practical terms? Okay, can I move the report?
I'll second it.
That report approved. Moving on to item 12, the response to the commercial waste motion, pages 185 to 190, and Kevin Carr is going to speak to this report. Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. The report aims to provide an overview of the current arrangements for commercial waste collection in South Lanarkshire and to outline the legal, practical and resource implications associated with implementing a new policy. At its meeting on 20th of November 2024, the Council unanimously approved a motion instructing officers to investigate the existing commercial waste management arrangements in South Lanarkshire and explore options for a new system. The motion recognised that the Council does not operate a commercial waste service itself and requested that officers explore a range of specific options, including allocated time slots for commercial waste to minimise the time waste is placed on streets, proposals for consulting with businesses and waste service providers on any new arrangements, options and implications of supporting businesses to adjust to any changes, and options and implications of compliance, including the use of fixed penalty notices. The legal framework for commercial waste collection is outlined in the Environmental Protection Act 1990, which assigns a duty of care on businesses to manage waste responsibly. The Waste Scotland Act amended the EPA to make it mandatory for businesses to present recyclable waste separately, which means some businesses require a minimum of 3 bins. High-density areas with tenement buildings are most impacted by the visible presence of commercial bins. Food premises, which often operate out with normal working hours, are subject to stringent food hygiene requirements that prohibit the internal storage of waste. The key enforcement provisions relevant to this report are set out in sections 34, 47 and 59 of the EPA. Currently, there is no legislative provision enabling the Council to issue fixed penalty notices to commercial premises that store waste receptacles in public footpaths. Formal notices can be issued under section 47 of the EPA. However, currently the only legal recourse for non-compliance with a formal notice would be to refer the matter to the Procurator Fiscal. It would then be for the Procurator Fiscal to decide, based on public interest, whether the offence warranted prosecution in the Sheriff Court. This has proved extremely challenging in other council areas who have enacted a commercial waste policy. However, it is also noted that legal provisions may be enacted later in the year through the Circular Economy Act, which will provide councils with additional powers to issue penalties, and this is an activity which will be pursued when the legislation is in place. South Lanarkshire Council's current enforcement policy requires that enforcement action must be fair and proportionate. The introduction of a regulated commercial waste policy would represent a significant operational change for local businesses and their waste contractors. It would be proposed that any new policy would align with the current 4E's approach of engage, educate, encourage and enforce. If the development of a policy has progressed, section 47 of the EPA would be utilised to develop a policy that allows businesses to leave bins on public areas at designated times only. The policy would need to recognise that some businesses, due to space and access restrictions, would not be able to comply with the policy. These businesses would require an exemption. To facilitate this process, exemption assessments would need to be undertaken prior to the policy implementation date. Given the geography of many of South Lanarkshire's town centres, it is expected that many businesses would qualify for an exemption. Extensive consultation will be required with local businesses and waste management companies prior to implementing any new policy. Once the consultation stage is complete, a policy will be developed which sets out the designated times when bins can be presented for collection and also confirm what sanctions would be used for non-compliance. As anticipated, the development, implementation and enforcement of a commercial waste policy would require additional revenue funding of around £320,000 per annum, and there is currently no budget available for this. Given the challenges outlined, implementing a commercial waste policy that achieves the intended outcomes of the motion would prove extremely difficult. Therefore, it is recommended that a policy is not pursued. Instead, an enhanced programme of activity to promote best practice in waste management and collection for commercial businesses should be developed and implemented within the context of the Council's existing statutory functions for environmental regulation, compliance and enforcement. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thanks very much, Kevin. This is one I must confess is close to my heart, and I think of the hearts of a number of other members because of local issues we have in a number of different areas, not least in my own area in Burnside. Andrea Cowan, you were involved with the initial motion, weren't you?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, and thanks to Kevin and to David Booth for meeting with me to go over this response from the officers. It's very detailed, and obviously they've picked up all the points that Councillor Kalikas and I brought in the motion. And as they say in the paper, it had cross-party support. So it's disappointing that you know, well, I mean, something's going to come of it, but it's disappointing that we're not going to be able to have sort of, you know, a proper change in policy to try and deal with the commercial waste. My concern is Rutherglen Main Street. I know you've got issues in Burnside, Robert, and Cambuslang Main Street can also be a problem. So it hits our area quite badly. But anyway, I just wanted to, again, just thank the officers. It's unfortunate that the report highlights more barriers to this, to change of policy than anything else. But I'm glad that our environmental officers are now, when they visit premises, are now going to highlight the commercial waste, you know, ask people what their arrangements are, and just, you know, try to educate and you know, and hopefully that will help. The other thing that came up actually at the members' session, the members' awareness session recently about waste, was the local takeaways, and you know, in particular the ones who serve school children at lunch times, and the litter that's generated from those. And hopefully environmental services will be able to engage with these businesses and try and keep our streets a wee bit tidier. So really, just as I say, disappointed that we're not going to have a sort of root and branch change, but thanks to the officers for looking at it. And as I say, hopefully the environmental officers bringing this to the attention of our local businesses will make some improvement. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Andrea. Kirsten?
Thank you. And thanks to the councillors for bringing it and the officers for looking at it as well. I wanted to ask a bit more on page 185 on the recommendations 2.5. Just a wee bit more detail about what an enhanced programme of activity to promote best practice in waste management and collection is. And I also wondered if there was any opportunities, again, to look up the waste hierarchy, as I usually mention, and how we can help, maybe through the extended producer responsibility funding, to look at how we work with businesses to help them minimise waste through innovative reuse schemes. For example, the cup reuse movement that's happening in Glasgow, or other reuse schemes, or waste minimisation or recycling schemes, where we can also save businesses costs as well. To see the paper that will come forward to the executive that we've been talking about, the extended producer responsibility, if that could pick up any of that to try and minimise waste in the first place. Thank you.
Kevin?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the question, Councillor Rob. So to pick up on your first question, so our environmental services teams, they visit all business premises and a risk-based approach over a number of years. So through their normal way of working, part of that process is also checking compliance with waste management arrangements. So what we're proposing here is actually to beef those inspections up. So when they're on site, do a more detailed check on their waste management arrangements, but also actually having probably some information to pass out and whether, you know, we can encourage more positive behaviour. So, you know, you can see the approach, the 4E's approach. Enforcement's the last step in the enforcement process at the moment, and it'd be more about encouraging positive behaviours and trying to organise perhaps with their neighbouring businesses in terms of their contracting with waste management operators and organising appropriate time slots for keeping their bins on site and removal, but more about encouraging positive behaviour rather than using enforcement and building on the current inspection regime. Your second point around APR, I'm not quite clear how much of that would be compliant with what we think are the requirements around the EPR at the moment. They're very tight and specific around, they must be associated with the council's net efficient costs of collection and disposal. So without some clarity around what you're talking about, I'm not quite sure it would meet those requirements.
Okay, thanks very much, Kevin. I think I could say on behalf of the administration that, as with fly tipping and other things in that area, this is something, frankly, which will benefit from a stronger approach. That's really what we're proposing here, to try and get on top of it. But I do think it has to be dealt with locally and on individual sites rather than across the board, which I think was the kind of thought behind the motion originally. So hopefully there will be some progress on this one. It will give us a bit of further beef, if you like, to be able to deal with some of the issues that arise from bins on pavements, which are a considerable annoyance on anybody's account to local residents, and sometimes with health hazards to them as well. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. That report is approved. Item 13, South Lanarkshire Inward Investment and Property Inquiries Update, pages 191 to 196. Back to Alison Brown.
Thank you. This paper provides an update on the Council's inward investment strategy and reviews property inquiries received from January to August this year. The 5 work streams of the Council's inward investment strategy is set out in section 4, with significant progress having been made in all of them, including a cross-resource team having been established to better collaborate and identify opportunities. A coordinated property inquiries database has also been established. South Lanarkshire Inward Investment website has been created and is live, and ongoing engagement with Glasgow City region partners and Scottish Enterprise to promote South Lanarkshire and showcase some of our developments. In respect of property inquiries, 87 inquiries have been received during this period. A breakdown of these has been circulated and is on your table, including more than 85% were businesses seeking up to 10,000 square foot of industrial space. Unfortunately, we have very limited availability of this stock across the council. East Kilbride and Hamilton remain the most sought after locations. Nearly 20% of inquiries were from construction trades and engineering, with 13% from food and drink businesses. And inward investment inquiries accounts for almost 7% of inquiries. I'd highlight that 2 sites at Langlands West in East Kilbride and Canderside in Lark Hall have been the focus of developer interest in recent months, with Langlands West now under offer as approved by Executive Committee. I've previously reported to committee the challenges of the commercial market and the lack of available land and property for industrial development. With that, it's highlighted in section 6 of the report that the Council is proposing to develop 2 industrial units at Cathcart Road in Rutherglen. Turning back to the recommendation, committee is asked to note progress in the Council's approach to inward investment and note the number and range of property inquiries from January to August this year. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alison. Any questions on that report with the larger document, I think, available to you as well? No questions. Can I move the report?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. That report's approved. Item 14, the Garden Waste Permit Scheme Progress Report 197 to 200. Kirsty Maguire to speak to that report. Kirsty.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide the committee with an update on the implementation of the Garden Waste Permit Scheme, which was approved at the Council's Executive Committee on the 26th of June 2024. From the 1st of April, residents who wish to use a burgundy bin to dispose of garden waste were required to purchase a permit costing £45 for each bin used. A 30% uptake was estimated for financial year 25-26, meaning the net income for year 1 was predicted to be £0.585 million. In terms of progress to date, the new permit scheme launched on the 19th of February 2025, and section 4 of the report contains the following headlines: that as of the 21st of August 2025, approximately 39,700 permits had been purchased. That figure equates to an uptake rate of over 34%, which is better than the 30% initially predicted. 257 permits were purchased by residents in areas that had not previously been able to make use of a burgundy bin. That's predominantly in our rural areas. And that over 93% of permits were ordered via the new online customer portal, which was implemented by the dedicated project team located within Waste Services. In addition, over 9,000 new or large burgundy bins were requested and delivered within this period. Section 4 of the report also refers to the initial waste flow analysis, which shows a reduction in the amount of organic waste being collected from burgundy bins and an increase in the amount of waste being collected from our black non-recyclable waste bins. It should be noted that the changes in waste flows are within the ranges predicted in our financial modelling. Section 5 of the report sets out the next steps for the project, which are focused on improving communications and on further development and improvement of the customer portal. Financial implications are set out in section 7 of the report, and it is stated here that, as of period 5, the income generated from the project exceeds the project estimate for year 1. A further update on the financials will be included in the Community and Enterprise Resource Financial Monitoring Reports later in the financial year. If I can now return to section 2 and ask the committee to note the content of the report. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kirsty. Questions? John Anderson.
Thanks, Chair. Disappointed in the report. We asked for a full report, an update on it. I think Kirsty said it was approved in June 24, but part of that approval was that the increase the waste service establishment of 4 full-time employees on a temporary basis, 9 full-time employees on a permanent basis. And there's nothing about that in this report. Also, the increase in the vehicle establishment for waste service failed to 648 be endorsed. Now, that was for us to increase the bin lorries and smaller bin lorries to go to them. Now, part of the reason for this was that there's something like 5,000 households in South Lanarkshire that don't have their burgundy bin or didn't have it. But I noticed that 250 have now come on board from the rural areas. That still leaves almost 5,000 people without it. And I thought the whole idea was to save this or stop this two-tier system and everybody would have a burgundy bin, whether they used it for the garden waste uplift or just for their food waste. That was my impression of what this was. This report, and Kirsty talked on it, has been reported in financial statements. It just seems a bit financial income, as if we've fleeced the residents over £500,000 and nothing else is getting done. Now, when this was approved regarding the employment and the vehicles, what's happened to that section? Has it now been dropped? Have you, as the chair, dropped that, or has the officers dropped it?
I think we can do without conspiracy theories, frankly, John, on that one. Can I ask Kirsty to reply on the question? Kevin's going to come in on the question of the report.
Thanks for your question, Councillor Anderson. So, to pick up your points in order, you're right, one of the benefits of introducing this service or permit scheme was to open up that service to those residents in Clydesdale for the first time. So that is the case. Now, unfortunately, we're a bit disappointed in the response that there's less than 300 have signed up to it, but it's open to residents for the first time and they can choose to purchase a permit so that they can dispose of their garden waste and their food waste, or they can opt in to the food waste service for the first time. So over winter, again, from our lessons learned over the summer, we'll have a kind of big comms campaign, primarily in the Clydesdale area, to encourage uptake for either the permit or to opt in for food waste for the first time, and just in general for residents to uptake the service in the new year. So we're working on that at the moment. Your first point about the staffing and the vehicles, I can confirm that we've took them on because that was the initial model that we've built. We've brought in temporary staff over this year that are managing the project, that have developed the IT system, that have engaged with customers. The temporary staff will go at the end of this year, and we've brought in the permanent staff that we also highlighted in the paper last year, in the hope that we would be facilitating more of the service within the Clydesdale area. But as I've said, we'll have a big comms campaign over the winter to try and encourage uptake of the service, specifically in that area.
Okay, thank you very much. Did you want to come back on that, John?
Please. I notice you're saying that the rural areas have got the option to opt in, and the urban areas, we never had the option of opting in. We were given a burgundy bin. So why have we not just distributed the burgundy bins to the rural areas for their food waste? And what's happening to all the grass that people here in the urban areas are not putting in their burgundy bin now? They're putting it in their green or black bin, whatever one it is. Is that going to a landfill? And what's happening to it?
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. So, as part of the original business case, we factored in that we would see some of the grass arisings move into the general waste bin. As you know from the previous paper, we're one of the last councils in Scotland to introduce a permit scheme, and the learning from elsewhere was that's what happened. So, from an environmental perspective, it's not what we want to see, but we factored it in. And as the paper sets out, it's actually less than we anticipated. We're seeing some more tonnages going to the household waste recycling centres as well. So I think as the papers tried to address, we're kind of in line with where we thought we were going to be in terms of the tonnages last year. And we're seeing them within the general waste bin and the household waste recycling centre.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I, no further questions, can I move that report? Thank you very much. That report's approved. Now we're heading up to the 2-hour mark, but since there's only 2 items left, I would propose to continue unless anybody's got any particular objections. In terms of finishing the reports, we should be having a break after 2 hours. We've only got a small number of items to go. Hopefully people are okay with that. All right? Yeah, thank you. The roads asset plan is the next one. That's item 15, pages 201 to 214, and Colin Park's going to speak to that report.
Thank you, Chair. Conscious of time today, so I will go through this paper swiftly. It is the standard kind of annual update paper, so you'll all be familiar with it. So the purpose of the report is to provide an update and outline the condition of roads and related infrastructure. It's a standard paper, you've seen it before. This sets the framework for the key principles and practices for effective management and maintenance across the road network. Principles are set out at section 3.2, and just kind of doing a quick move through the kind of various asset groups. In terms of carriageway assets, the headline here is that the backlog figure for the calculation for South Lanarkshire Council is 107 million, just under 107 million, and that's up from the previous figure of 90.4. And that's the sum of money that's required to invest in a single year to bring the road network up to serviceable standard. The latest RCI condition, which is the Road Condition Index data, indicates that 32.5% of our network needs maintenance, and that's an increase of 0.6 on last year's figure. And I'll come on to, obviously, the additional investment that's been provided this financial year. So that's obviously showing a bit of a deteriorating picture, but the kind of surveys that we do undertake take about 2 to 3 years to start to see actually difference on the ground. 4.1 just kind of, again, gives that in a different kind of format, talking about our position relative to other local authorities, and you'll see at the table at just under 4.11. We've moved from 12th to 14th, so that's not a good direction to go in. So we're obviously deteriorating there slightly. However, the kind of additional funding investment, which we'll talk about at the end, will hopefully go some way to addressing that. The steady state figure has moved from 12.5 million up to 16.52 million, and members will recollect we have been largely funding at steady state for many years, up until about 3-4 years ago, and with the level of inflation and such like in the condition of the network, that 12.5 million was no longer sufficient, and you'll see it's now moved up to 16.5 million, and we are now funding pretty close to that. During the financial year, 4.14, during this financial year, we're directing around about 12 million towards direct carriageway improvements, and the balance is going towards other asset groups such as traffic signals, bridges, etc., street lights and footways. As I said there at 4.14, the increased 12 million capital investment made available this year over the next 3 years is a vital and positive step forward, and it will play a key role in slowing the rate of deterioration, and some stability should begin to emerge moving forward. Footway asset group hasn't changed significantly, just kind of drawing attention at 5.6 there in relation to we're investing 1.35 million versus a steady state of about 1.4, so we're not far away from that in terms of footways. Our light and asset group there is seeing a deterioration with the columns beyond their design life has regressed slightly from 35.9% to 46%. We are investing around about 953,000 this financial year versus a steady state of 1.8, so obviously a little bit more focus needed on lighting. Quite a full section in section 7 there on structures assets, but the kind of key point there is the steady state figure is up from 6.88 million, sorry, it's up to 6.88 million, up from 6.4, and we're currently only able to direct around about just over £1 million towards our structures asset group. The overall picture at 7.12 just shows the kind of the various conditions of our bridge infrastructure, and in terms of the critical components and the kind of overall condition. And over time it has regressed, but it's relatively stable, and we still are within the range of good condition. And that's your kind of your BCI of between 80.9 and our fare condition for the base EI between 65.8. Again, just talking about a deteriorating picture, but a pretty static one in terms of overall condition. Our traffic signals, again, just kind of similar headlines here. We do have an ageing traffic signal and pedestrian crossing asset base. We've got over 237 sets of signals. We should be investing around about, the cost to replace an average set of traffic signals is just under 300,000, and for a pedestrian crossing just under 100,000. And the existing level of funding should allow us to upgrade 1 traffic signal junction and perhaps 3 pedestrian crossings. We do tap into a lot of external funding through our active travel programme, and we're hopefully going to continue to do that. We are investing around about 650,000 this financial year versus a steady state figure of 2.93 million. So again, whilst we are investing, we're not investing at the sufficient levels. We've currently got over 38 sets, we've got currently around about 37% of our assets are over 15 years old or older, and that represents around about 38 sets of traffic signals and 50 pedestrian crossings. Again, 15 years or older is what you would expect a set of signals to last for. Noting the kind of deeper dive into these stats does indicate we've got traffic signals and pedestrian crossings much, much older, which are continue to operate. So again, it's a fine balancing act. In terms of vehicle restraint systems, that hasn't moved significantly over the last couple of years. We're essentially just responding on a reactive basis to any accident damage in line with the kind of available funds we have available for reactive response to infrastructure issues. Conclusions in summary, obviously roads are pretty key to keeping our communities and businesses connected. Businesses use it to deliver goods and services, buses use it, and people use it to travel to and from work. So it's a pretty critical asset base. 10.2 there goes into largely what I've just said. It's kind of summarising the position across carriageways and footway structures, light and traffic management systems and street furniture. In terms of employee implications, just worth noting that the current increase in the backlog is increasing the level of complaints that we're receiving, but we are beginning to see hopefully a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel in terms of increased investment that we have. I don't think we'll see much change in figures this time next year. However, I would like to think the following year we'll begin to start to see some of that investment beginning to affect the figures. Section 12 there just goes into a wee bit more detail in terms of the kind of the funding pressures, some of the issues over extreme weather, climate change, utility openings. I'm sure you'll all be appreciating that it's not just the road network that's experiencing pressures. The utility network under the road is causing significant disruption across not only South Lanarkshire but across whole of Scotland. Striking the balance between funding available and where we're directing it is obviously going to remain key for us moving forward. Climate change, sustainability, environmental implications are set out at section 13, as are other implications at 14 and 15 in terms of integrated impact assessments. Turning back to the recommendation, committee just asked to note the contents of the paper. I'm trying to scroll back up quickly here, and that's it, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Colin, for that. Very useful report, as always, if somewhat depressing. Alec Allison.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. You'd make an accountant, and very happy the way you threw all these figures at us, Colin. Perhaps the most disappointing bit of it, though, is the reduction in the RCI. We invested a heck of a lot of money for more than a decade to improve the basic road structure, and I certainly hope you're right that the extra funding that we put in last year will be enough to rectify that decline. But the base budget that we were working on was a recommended level for steady state, yet it has not produced a steady state. So I think it's important that we get a far better figure when we are looking at budgets to ensure that we're funding, that we're getting what we're funding, because quite honestly we're not quite at the moment funding base funding, and that will be reducing in the next couple of years, is not giving us steady state.
Okay, I don't think that needs any comment, does it really? It's
No.
it's a Alec Allison rant, as we often have on these matters. Andrea Cowan. Understandable.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Colin. This is a thing that happened locally. I'm sure you'll be aware of it last year in Rutherglen and Bankhead. A whole load of our lighting columns were condemned in one day, and they were, for health and safety reasons, they were cut down basically and taken away. And the residents of Bankhead were left without any lighting, any street lighting, for almost 3 months, in fact. Now, I know that that was due to a lack in the supply chain of the lighting columns. And I see in this report that 46% of the lighting columns are currently exceeding the life expectancy. And so I'm anticipating that you'll say yes. I'm hoping that lessons have been learned and that perhaps we have a wee stock of lighting columns, just in case this happens to another community. Just like some reassurance around that. Thanks.
Colin.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Cowan. I think in terms of the reactive nature of that, we are doing, because we don't have sufficient funding to tackle the problem, we need to make sure where we are replacing lighting columns, we're replacing the ones that need targeted. So clearly the ones in that area you referred to there, they have been subject to an enhanced testing regime. They've clearly failed, and possibly at a scale we weren't expecting, so we didn't have sufficient columns available. I will do a wee bit of a deeper dive into that, just to make sure we do have a few more of them. And there's always a fine balance between ensuring we're targeting the investment levels we have at the right location and testing too many for us to meet the kind of priorities ahead for us. So we're just finding that balance, and hopefully we'll not encounter a similar problem again. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Colin. I mean, it is a depressing report, but I think to be fair, the £12 million extra investment that was put into the budget should make a bit of a difference over time, but it's a longer-term project, really, isn't it? Can I move that report?
I'll second it.
And then finally, in terms of the positive reports, can I move to item 16, the annual update on the Community Enterprise Resources Risk Register, pages 215 to 232. Alison Brown to speak as shortly as she can to this report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cutting to the chase, the background of the Council's risk management strategy is set out in section 3. The main changes to the risks register are set out in section 5, including 2 risks which have been removed in relation to commercial unviable shopping centres and disruption of council services due to industrial action. 2 risks have had their scores increased relating to information governance and inability to maintain infrastructure assets, and 2 risks have been consolidated into 1 regarding resilience measures and emergency planning. And with that, I just ask committee to note the report.
Thanks very much. I think it's fairly obvious. Can I... Oh, John Anderson.
Thanks, Chair. Just on page 216, the agreement to demolish Centre West and East Kilbride. My understanding was that that was going to take place immediately, well, not on the 1st of January, obviously, but immediately after that, when all the shops would be moved. I have been informed, whether it's reliable or not, that 2 of the shops will not be vacated or vacating out of Centre West by January, and that's going to delay the demolition of this for another 3 months. And I was just wondering, there's a financial implication here, because I think the council will then be held responsible for the empty shop rates that come the 1st of January. So I wonder if somebody could comment on that.
Alison?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. There is a paper being prepared at the moment for Executive Committee seeking approval to progress with the demolition of Centre West, and it still is our intention to do that in January. That said, there are 2 shop units that are still in negotiation with Scoop, the administrator, to relocate. However, there were significant movements on those yesterday in terms of signing of paperwork. Even if there were some issues and a few weeks delay in 2 units being moved, Centre West, as you know, is a huge site, and we'd be proposing to start at the multi-storey car park site and work in. So as of yesterday, I'm more optimistic that we won't have any issues with two shop units, but we do have mitigation measures in place.
Thank you very much. Can I move that report?
Second it.
That report's also approved. I've got no urgent business. Can I thank colleagues for their long attendance today and draw the meeting to a close? Thank you.
That's fine.